the gloves are off. Just moments ago, Richard Tice pulled the pin and hurled a political grenade directly into the laps of Keir Starmer and Ed Davey, and the explosion has sent shockwaves across Westminster. With zero warning, Reform UK has executed the boldest immigration counterattack Britain has ever seen. Migrants are now being redirected, yes, physically relocated, to Labour and Lib Dem strongholds. And Starmer is absolutely losing control. The Labour Party, which once proudly waved the Refugees Welcome banner, is now being forced to live by its own rules. This isn't a bluff. This is action. Cold, calculated, and politically devastating. Tice has just changed the game. Reform UK has just unleashed a strategy so unfiltered, so aggressive, and so completely unapologetic that it has Parliament scrambling in chaos. At the heart of it is a single brutal message. If you voted for mass migration, you can house them. That's right. Richard Tice has announced that all local councils under Reform control will no longer accommodate illegal migrants. Instead, Reform is now actively transporting them, yes, unloading them, into areas controlled by Labour, the Lib Dems and the Greens. Councils that supported open borders are being forced to receive the very consequences they once dumped onto working-class communities that never asked for them. Lincolnshire is the opening battlefield. After gaining control of key local councils, Reform has begun using its legal authority to block asylum hotel contracts, issue rejection orders to the Home Office, and redirect resources. Tice has already confirmed teams of lawyers are being deployed to shut down migrant accommodations in their regions, and they're winning. Legal letters have been served, contracts are being ripped apart, and now convoys of buses are being prepared to deliver migrants straight into Labour voting zones. It's not just symbolic, it's direct retaliation, one that's caught Starmer's camp completely off guard. What makes this more explosive is the timing. Just as Labour tries to position itself as the responsible party ahead of a potential general election, Reform UK has yanked the curtain back, revealing the gaping hole in Labour's immigration policy. For years, Labour and the Lib Dems pushed unchecked migration while sheltering themselves from its impact. Migrants were sent to Dover, Kent, Rochdale, Blackpool, towns without the infrastructure or funding to cope, but more importantly, towns that never voted for it. Now, Reform is flipping the script. You welcomed them, now you house them, Tice declared, drawing comparisons to the hardline tactics of US governors who bus migrants into sanctuary cities. And like in America, the media here is struggling to keep up. They can't spin this one, because the footage, the facts, the fury, it's all unfolding too fast. The backlash was immediate. Inside Labour HQ, panic set in as reports came in from local councillors furious about unexpected migrant arrivals. Residents in leafy Liberal wards began asking questions. Why now? Why here? Why weren't we consulted? And in that moment, the hypocrisy that Reform has been exposing for months finally boiled over. Labour's virtue signalling has turned into a logistical nightmare, and Keir Starmer is out of answers. He can't backtrack without appearing weak. He can't oppose the migrant arrivals without contradicting his own policies. And worst of all, he can't stop the momentum. Reform UK has the legal authority in their councils, and they are using it with surgical precision. But this isn't just about public relations. Reform is building a war machine. Every legal battle, every local vote, every bureaucratic delay is now being weaponised. Councils are issuing public notices, blocking hotel conversions and refusing to grant permits. Simultaneously, they are compiling databases of Labour and Lib Dem-controlled councils that previously supported open border policies. These councils are now being targeted, not just politically, but literally. The new Reform motto is ruthless, no more dumping migrants in places that didn't vote for them. And the British public is loving it. Social media is on fire with support. Local communities are rising, forming volunteer units, creating informational campaigns, and demanding more Reform candidates in their regions. The movement isn't just growing, it's becoming unstoppable. Keir Starmer's meltdown was inevitable. As the Reform strategy played out on national news, he was pressed by reporters. Where do you stand? He dodged, then he stumbled, then he finally cracked, lashing out at Reform as inhumane and dangerous. But no one was buying it. The voters aren't stupid. They know who ignored their towns. They remember who mocked their concerns. And now, when Reform holds up a mirror, Starmer doesn't like the reflection. His advisors urged him to stay calm, to wait out the news cycle, but this isn't going away. Because Reform has promised that Lincolnshire is just the beginning. Dozens more councils are preparing similar motions. Hundreds of legal filings are in progress. And behind it all, Nigel Farage remains silent. But everyone knows he's watching. The Tories, meanwhile, are caught in the middle of the storm. Once seen as the party of law and order, they now look paralysed and outdated. Reform is doing what the Conservatives never had the courage to do. Take actual action. Tory MPs are terrified. Their voters are defecting. Their donors are whispering. And every time Richard Tice steps in front of a camera, the pressure mounts. Reform UK is not just challenging Labour. They are declaring war on the entire political establishment. And if the polls continue their trajectory, this political grenade won't just wound the other parties, it might destroy them. The ripple effect from Richard Tice's bold manoeuvre is growing into a political earthquake, shaking the very foundations of Labour and Liberal Democrat leadership across the country. While mainstream outlets scramble to downplay the impact, it's impossible to ignore the storm brewing on the ground. Reform UK's policy is no longer just a headline. It's a ticking time bomb for councils that embraced open borders rhetoric without ever preparing for the real-world consequences. Tice's move to reroute migrants to Labour and Lib Dem controlled areas has triggered mass confusion within local authorities. Emails are flying, crisis meetings are being called, and behind the scenes, panic is setting in. Officials who once proudly spoke at refugee welcome rallies are now clashing with their own voters, who never imagined their comfortable suburban neighbourhoods would become the next front line of Britain's broken immigration system. In a scathing follow-up interview, Richard Tice doubled down, exposing what he called the greatest political betrayal of modern Britain, the systemic offloading of migration burdens onto the working-class heartlands, while elite politicians pat themselves on the back. "We've had enough," he stated. "No more hiding behind empty slogans. If they want it, they can have it." The delivery of this message wasn't theatrical, it was methodical. With a cold, strategic calm, Reform UK has begun formal proceedings to renegotiate housing contracts in reform-controlled councils. The goal is crystal clear: rip the mask off Labour and the Lib Dems, and show the country that their immigration policies are built on shifting blame, not solving problems. Reform is not just exposing the rot, they're uprooting it, one council at a time. This isn't just a legal fight, it's psychological warfare. Reform UK has created a climate of fear among establishment politicians, who now realise they can no longer outsource the problems they've created. One Reform councillor in Essex openly stated, "They laughed at us for years. Now they're the ones scrambling to explain why buses of migrants are being dropped in their own wards." That comment, raw and unforgiving, quickly spread across social media, fueling nationwide debate. Meanwhile, Tice isn't slowing down. Behind the scenes, more Reform candidates are being prepped to stand in by-elections, with internal documents showing a highly organised recruitment campaign designed to flood local politics, with fresh voices committed to ending what they call the migrant dumping racket. Keir Starmer, once calm and measured in public, has reportedly erupted in private meetings. Party insiders are leaking information that Starmer has berated senior strategists for failing to anticipate Reform's rapid gains. One anonymous MP described the mood inside Labour HQ as pure desperation, and rightly so. While Starmer continues to issue vague statements about humane immigration, voters are seeing Reform UK take tangible steps, blocking new asylum housing projects, redirecting migrants to Labour territories, and building public support with every move. It's no longer just rhetoric versus action, it's exposure versus evasion. Starmer is boxed in and the pressure is mounting. Farage's silence remains one of the most chilling parts of this unfolding drama. While Richard Tice, Reform's strategy has weaponised truth, turning long-ignored voter frustration into a political spear. And the media? They're out of their depth. Reform's legal moves are airtight. Their public messaging is laser-focused. And their timing, impeccable. Every headline, every migrant relocation, every council order, they've been calculated to cause maximum political damage while maintaining total legality. Meanwhile, the Conservative Party remains in shambles. Rishi Sunak's government is watching helplessly as Reform UK eats into their base. Prominent Tory voices have already begun to flirt with reform ideas. Whispers of backroom talks between disillusioned MPs and reform strategists are growing louder. The question is no longer whether reform will replace the Conservatives in working-class regions, it's how soon. With Labour imploding under pressure and the Tories paralysed by fear, the vacuum at the heart of British politics is being filled by a party that refuses to apologise, refuses to compromise, and refuses to play by the old rules. The chaos inside Labour and Lib Dem councils has also exposed a deeper problem. No one actually believed their own policies would ever be tested. Years of virtue signalling have collapsed under the weight of real-world accountability. When faced with the task of housing, feeding, and managing thousands of migrants, these councils have gone silent. Some are even reportedly exploring legal ways to refuse the incoming migrants. But it's too late. Reform's trap has been sprung. The moral high ground these parties once claimed is now a cratered battlefield, and they are standing in the ruins. This is no longer just a political feud. It's a war of ideology, identity, and raw power. And Reform UK has shown they are ready to fight it head-on. With every council motion passed, every migrant redirected, and every Labour denial broadcast, the divide between the ruling class and the rest of Britain is becoming impossible to ignore. Tice and Farage have taken that anger, that betrayal, and that exhaustion, and they've forged it into a weapon aimed directly at the heart of the establishment. The storm ignited by Reform UK is not just a headline flash. It's a sustained political bombardment, and the shockwaves are now tearing through the power structure of Westminster. As migrants are rerouted into the very neighbourhoods that championed mass immigration in theory but never wanted to live with its reality, the response has gone from silent discomfort to open outrage. Labour and Lib Dem councillors are now facing furious constituents. Town hall meetings are erupting into chaos, and once loyal voters are demanding answers that their elected officials simply don't have. This is precisely what Richard Tice and Nigel Farage predicted, and it's happening faster than anyone anticipated. Their gambit to force the hand of the so-called progressives is proving devastatingly effective. In towns like Cambridge, Lewis, and parts of Bristol, known for their Liberal Democrat or Green majorities, there's a growing backlash against the sudden allocation of migrant housing. Local authorities, overwhelmed and caught off guard, are attempting to deflect responsibility. But Reform UK's strategy has boxed them into a corner. If they refuse to host the migrants, they contradict their own long-held moral positions on compassion and open borders. If they accept them, they anger their voter base and expose their hypocrisy. Either way, the damage is done. Tice has effectively turned Labour and the Lib Dems' slogans into political shackles, and now they're dragging them through the mud, with every headline and viral clip doing further damage to their credibility. Behind the scenes, the legal infrastructure backing Reform's moves is expanding rapidly. Dozens of barristers and legal consultants have joined their efforts, identifying loopholes in Home Office directives and exploiting inconsistencies in council obligations. While Labour may scream about fairness or unethical tactics, the fact remains, Reform is operating within the law. In fact, they're using the very laws the establishment created. This is not vigilante politics. This is system-level disruption, and it's surgically precise. Documents leaked from internal government sources even show civil servants struggling to respond to the sheer volume of legal challenges Reform is launching. And each time the Home Office delays or stumbles, Reform gains more public support. Meanwhile, Farage continues to orchestrate from the shadows, holding strategic talks with influential business leaders and preparing a full-scale media blitz once the general election is triggered. Party insiders whisper of a carefully planned return, one that will be timed for maximum impact, just as Starmer and Sunak find themselves politically exhausted and ideologically cornered. The country, already bracing for another wave of discontent over cost of living, housing shortages, and NHS pressures, is now watching Reform step in with bold, uncompromising proposals. The public mood is turning, not just against illegal immigration, but against the political class as a whole. Reform is no longer seen as the outsider. They are being seen as the last voice of reason in a system that has lost control. One of the most potent aspects of Reform's strategy is its ability to expose the elite hypocrisy in real time. Cameras now follow buses as they arrive in once safe Labour areas. Locals, many of whom previously voted Labour or Lib Dem, are voicing anger at not being consulted, not being warned, and not being prepared. For years, these communities were told that opposing mass migration made them backward or racist. Now they are being forced to confront the chaos their own votes indirectly supported. Reform UK didn't need to spend millions on political ads. They turned Britain's streets into the message board. And the message is ringing out loud and clear. The era of comfortable detachment is over. If you supported it, you live with it. The Tories, desperate to remain relevant, are scrambling to reframe themselves as immigration hawks. But it's far too late. Their 14-year record of failure, punctuated by empty speeches, broken promises, and quiet capitulations, has left them exposed. Richard Tice ruthlessly highlighted this in a fiery statement, accusing the Conservatives of lying to the British people while knowingly surrendering our borders. He went on to ask, If they could have done something, why didn't they? Why did they wait until now when reform forced their hand? These questions, once confined to political forums, are now echoing through the living rooms of working-class families across Britain. And the answers? Nowhere to be found. In contrast, Reform's message is brutally simple. Enforce the law, stop the boats, house the migrants where they are wanted, not where they're resented. They've called for emergency legislation to scrap the Human Rights Act, exit the European Court of Human Rights, and immediately repatriate illegal migrants. Tice's famous soundbite, "If it's good enough for the army, it's good enough for those who break into our country," has become a rallying cry. And despite establishment media trying to dismiss it as harsh or extreme, polls show it's resonating with a vast segment of the public, including disillusioned former Labour and Tory voters. The momentum is undeniable. Even within Labour, cracks are beginning to show. Whistleblowers have leaked internal memos revealing that MPs are now being instructed not to engage publicly on migration issues without clearance from central command. Several backbenchers have even voiced concern about the party's strategy, warning that Reform's challenge is not a passing wave, it's a political reformation. And with Reform candidates winning over council seats and building grassroots momentum in historically red constituencies, those fears are now manifesting into real-world losses. The truth is this: what began as a bold, controversial manoeuvre by Richard Tice has rapidly evolved into a nationwide reckoning. No longer can Labour, the Lib Dems, or the Tories pretend that the consequences of mass migration only belong in someone else's backyard. Reform has forced every party to confront the realities of their policies, and the public is finally watching with eyes wide open. The narrative is no longer controlled by slick spin or guarded press releases. It's being written in towns and villages across Britain, one redirected migrant bus at a time.